Hey, everybody out there in Manchester, Hooks at Auburn. It's the Progress Report because it's Wednesday. And when it's Wednesday, it's the Progress Report and has been for, Lou, I think 8 years.
Wow.
8 years.
Wow.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
And as our viewers will realize that this is the first Wednesday of the month, which means Mike Farley's off being a Hibernian, getting ready for the best parade Manchester has all year,
Yep.
the St. Patrick's Day Parade. We can already look forward to that because it's kind of the end of winter. And in his place, my good friend and solid contributor to New Hampshire in so many ways, Senator Lou D'Alessandro, the Dean of the New Hampshire Senate. And in addition to Lou, I'm very pleased to have here our minority leader in the New Hampshire House, Steve Shurtleff, also a city councilor in Concord. And he put in a long day today, and I'm just really pleased that he was willing to come down here and join us.
Terrific.
I'd just like to make a couple of preliminary observations, and again, as I always do, invite people to participate, 640-3091. We hope you will provoke you to want to call in and challenge us, support us, denounce us, whatever you want to do. We welcome your participation. Number one, that I don't think enough people know about this, but there is a Facebook page for this show. And almost every week, including this week, I have forgotten sometimes, I do try and post up on that Facebook page what the program is for the show. And so if you want to know what's coming up, check out the Facebook page. I also do it on my own personal Facebook page. So I wanted to mention that. And I also wanted to mention that I just found out that recently there's been started a new channel here on MCTV. It's a Manchester History channel, and Channel 97. I got that from John Clayton.
Wow.
And anybody knows about Manchester history, it's John Clayton.
Oh, yeah, John Clayton.
And so that's two things I wanted to mention as we launch into the program. So, Steve, thanks for coming down.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's good seeing
really
both you and Lou. I miss seeing my fellow Hibernian Mike, but it's good you got a good replacement with Lou.
Yeah, we do. And there's a number of things I wanted to have you have a chance to talk to our viewers about. But number one is, I think, even though it's a while since the election in Alabama, well, it's not that long ago. Was that December 12th?
December 12th, yeah.
December 12th. It was, not November, it was December. In Alabama, where there was this outstanding result of a fellow named Doug Jones, who was the Democratic candidate for Senate in Alabama to succeed Jeff Sessions, who's now, alas, the Attorney General, and who was considered a huge underdog. And he pulled off, I think, the most stunning upset in this election year, and we've had a lot of them, haven't we, Steve?
We sure have.
Including right here in the great state of New Hampshire.
Absolutely.
We've had
Right here
some
in the Queen
wonderful
City.
results
Absolutely.
in these special elections around the state and in the Queen City. And nothing bigger than the election of Doug Jones in Alabama, which, if I think I heard, this is the first time this deeply red southern state has elected a Democrat to the Senate since 1992.
Yeah.
Imagine that. And part of the reason that happened was an outpouring of support from lots of places, including New Hampshire. And I'm proud to say that Steve Shurtleff, I think, was the instigator of a campaign to get a group of New Hampshire Democrats, including, of course, himself, to go to Alabama on their own dime and go door knocking in Alabama.
Well.
And I want to hear about it.
Well, you're right. I sent an email out to our caucus, Bob, and I said, we talk about various issues, and there's nothing, I think, more important than this election in Alabama. The difference between the two candidates, Roy Moore, and we all know the baggage he brought to that race, not just the allegations of pedophilia, but also his right-wing views, was running against Doug Jones, the former United States Attorney.
Defied 2 federal court orders, and he not have the Ten Commandments statue in his courthouse because he was an elected judge in the Alabama Supreme Court.
Yeah. The other was telling clerks that they did not have to provide marriage licenses to same-sex marriages, and again, standing up to the United States Supreme Court. And Doug Jones, who prosecuted the KKK members who bombed the 18th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham and killed those 4 young girls in December of 1963.
Hideous crime.
Absolutely. So it was such a clear-cut election, and it wasn't Democrat, Republican. It was really right versus wrong, good versus bad. And so I said, I've always talked about different things that are, important. Why not do something? And I sent an email to the caucus, and I said, I'm going to Alabama, and I'm specifically going to Birmingham because of the history there in '63, the bombing of the Baptist church, Dr. King in his letter from the Birmingham
And
jail.
going back before that, Rosa Parks riding the bus.
Well,
in
that's
Birmingham.
Montgomery.
Oh, that's Montgomery.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm
But
sorry.
Birmingham, with Birmingham, the demonstrations and the public safety director, Bull Connor, unleashing the
Right, the
dogs
dogs,
and the
yeah,
water
so, yeah.
cannons and
Yeah.
on young children. And I said, that's where I want to go and that's where I want to help. And 6 of our colleagues from the House joined me, and we all went to Birmingham, stayed at the same hotel. And we spent 3 days going door to door, primarily in black neighborhoods. And it was so heartwarming, though, going door to door. Alabama is 75% Republican, so they don't see a lot of Democrats coming out campaigning or going door to door and canvassing. And to see people and saying, are you going to be at the polls to vote for Doug Jones? And to see the pride in their eyes. And one woman I remember talking to, she said to me, I'm going to be there on election day. I'm going to vote. I am the first black girl to graduate from my high school that used to be all white. They used to send us to a different school. We had a different diploma. I integrated my local high school and what he did. And, this issue of the KKK and the bombings, that was never used as publicity. But especially in the black community, they knew what Doug Jones did. He was also on the board of the Civil Rights Museum, but he never made an issue of it.
Really?
No, never made a campaign. But they knew who he was. They knew his heart. And they, in the black community, they were hoping to get 25% of the vote come out. They got close to 30.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you go down there, and we're Yankees,
Yeah. Yeah.
and there's a lot. Did you have to worry about the idea that these are outsiders coming in telling us how to exercise our franchise? Did you get any feeling of being
No.
resented for doing what you were doing?
No, I thought there might be this idea, here come the carpetbaggers, these, Yankees coming down to tell us how we should vote. But no, everyone was very welcoming and very kind. I went into a grocery store to get something, and I was talking to the lady, and she said, "You're not from around here, are you?" And I said, "No, I'm actually here from New Hampshire." And she says, "What are you doing here in Birmingham?" And I had a Doug Jones button on. I said, just pointed to the button. And she just smiled and nodded her head.
Yeah.
But no, people were very warm, very welcoming.
Did you have any interaction with any of the white voters down there?
No, we were in the black communities for 3 days straight. A lot of the volunteers at the campaign office were white, young, old, rich, poor, all different classes. And, they were just so proud to be out there campaigning for Doug Jones. They had so much pride in him, and they knew the kind of man he was, and what an outstanding senator. And the more, every day, it was something else coming out about Roy Moore, another
Yeah.
allegation,
Yeah.
another something happening. The fact that a week before the election, he was at the Army-Navy football game instead of out campaigning, and he's pretty much missing in action for a week. They
Right.
didn't see him on the campaign trail.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people took that as a degree of arrogance. He knew he had a strong Republican base, and that it was his election.
It was just his.
He was a
He
Republican.
didn't have to
that-
do much. It was
That's
his
it.
by
Yeah.
virtue of being a Republican.
Yeah,
His election to lose, really.
absolutely, and
His
he
election
did.
to lose.
Yeah,
yeah,
And he did it.
And he still hasn't conceded.
Right. He still
Yeah.
hasn't conceded.
Amazing.
Doesn't matter. Doug
No,
Jones
he
is
sure
now
doesn't.
sworn in as
Absolutely.
now a
US
United States
Senator.
Senator
Yeah,
representing
Yeah,
Alabama. Did you stay down through the election?
yeah. Stayed right through election night and at the
That
hotel.
must have been a mighty exciting evening.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
And the returns were coming in. And the earlier returns are coming in from districts that would give Roy Moore the lead. But we're looking at the New York Times web blog, and they were saying, well, no, it's like a 65% that Doug Jones will win because of where the votes hadn't come in from. In places that, like Mobile, that normally vote Republican, win for Jones. Other areas in the state that they expected that he'd have to do well, and he actually took. So it was a great night.
Did you get a chance to meet Doug Jones himself?
No, not a chance to talk to him or anything. Got a chance to see him, but not to talk to him.
Well, I'm sure that chance may
Yeah.
come up.
We'll have to ask him to come up.
Who
to New
knows?
Hampshire.
Maybe he'll come to New Hampshire.
Well, I've thought about that, having him maybe come up and do a fundraiser.
lot of people
for
do
the
come to
House
New Hampshire
Democrats.
that are
Absolutely.
in office in the Senate.
Yeah, that would be I think that would be a great deal for him to come up here.
Absolutely,
Come
yes.
up here and
Say thank you to the New Hampshire
yeah,
7.
sure.
Yeah.
And really talk about his experience.
Yeah.
Really, I think people don't recognize the fact that the South is a very different place
Oh,
to
it
run.
is.
A very different
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
sure is.
And I know that you were in the service, but I was stationed in the South.
Yeah.
I was in North Carolina, and when I was there, segregation was in place.
Sure.
And it was a very difficult situation for a minority. Actually, I spoke about it today. On the floor of the Senate, we were debating the bill.
Oh.
The 372, and I said that in New Hampshire, we had to get over. You couldn't vote unless you owned land. Women didn't have the right to vote, and we had a woman who ran for governor without the right to vote.
Yeah.
And
Was that Martha Ricketts? Is that lady?
that's her whose picture's right in
Now
the
State
hanging.
House.
Yeah.
now hanging in the State House.
Yeah.
But I kind of went over other things, and I said we couldn't get the voting rights bill passed today through the Congress of the United States.
Right.
I bet you're right about that.
I would guarantee it. We couldn't get it passed, and yet we had to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as a country, we had to do it, and the vote is so precious. And what we've been doing time after time is trying to compress the vote rather than expand the vote.
Yeah.
And I taught civics in 1961 at Kennan High School in Conway, New Hampshire, and I taught it at Bishop Bradley High School here in Manchester. And believe it or not, the Speaker of the House was my student when he was in the 9th grade.
Really?
Yes. And the Secretary of State was my student when he was in the 9th grade. So maybe I had some impact.
Jeez.
But indeed, just going over what path people had to take to get the right to vote. And you go to Alabama and witness one of the great results of people having the right to vote, because I would guarantee you that the minority vote for your candidate
Yeah.
was overwhelming.
It was.
Overwhelming.
Incredible.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I think, the analysis says that it was the black vote, and particularly the black women vote,
oh yeah,
that turned out
that's
that
what I
really
heard.
made the difference.
Yeah, I think a remarkable situation,
Yeah.
a historical situation, and to be part of it.
Yeah.
That's really a tribute to you and those who went down. I think that's very
That's
important.
something I'll always remember as a special part of my life, to be there and to see, nice guys don't finish last. Here's a nice guy that actually won his election.
Yeah, and he's a very, very nice guy, appears to be.
Yeah.
I think we have a call. Hello, caller. Is this Jasmine? Are you with us on the progress report?
Sorry, it's Eddie on line one.
Oh, Eddie.
Wrong name up there. So.
Well, we hope Jasmine will call in too. But Eddie, we welcome you back.
Hey,
Good to hear from you.
Bob.
Hi, Eddie. Welcome back.
Thank you for calling in. Hey, listen, I got a question for the senator.
Sure.
Okay.
You had mentioned that we're trying to compress the vote.
Yes.
Can you just expand on that?
Sure. I think what we're doing is we are fabricating, under this alternate facts, different reasons why we should do more to tighten up the process, because we're spreading a perception there has been illegal voting in our state, which is preposterous, just preposterous.
You don't think there's illegal voting in the state?
I think that some people, yeah, maybe, but it's such a minority, that indeed it doesn't play a role. It doesn't play a role in the process. And remember, we New Hampshire, we were under court order for years because of the way we treated people in the right to vote and the way to register to vote. That court order was in place till very, very recently. So we have done over the years many things to restrict voting in the state of New
Could you give
Hampshire.
some examples?
Sure. When I ran for executive council, in some of the towns, you had to have your birth certificate or a passport to register to vote. Only 10% of the people in this country have a passport. And how many people carry their birth certificate around in their pocket? I doubt it. And then in those days, the polls.
Hey, what about current day, though? Do you need those currently, or doesn't a driver's license apply?
Well, today we've made strides, and it's a driver's license. Yeah, but that's an
Are
expansion.
you talking about the past, or are you talking about the present?
Well, I'm talking about what led to the changes we have made to make voting more appropriate, and we're trying to turn the clock back and go back to what it was in the past. That's what I'm saying.
What I've noticed, I've worked the polls at Memorial High School, Ward 8. I've seen people walk in, no documentation whatsoever, and they get handed a ballot.
They can do that if somebody in a voting official knows the
Technically a
individual.
provisional ballot, but it gets
Yeah.
counted in the
Well, and they have
no
to.
driver's license, nothing.
Yeah, but they have to sign an affidavit, and that affidavit
right,
is
but
well. So that affidavit, if it proves to be
Check up on
false,
that stuff.
oh no, they
I mean,
go to the
I
Secretary of
see
State's
the
office.
opposite of compressing the vote. I see.
Okay.
Well,
what do you see?
To tighten it. I mean, we've got people walking in off the street, no documentation whatsoever, and yes, they sign an affidavit, but their ballot goes into the machine like anybody else. Nobody checks up on anything.
I'm not sure that's
mean,
true.
I
I don't think that's true.
I don't think that's true. And to me, Eddie,
I've seen it happen.
well, Eddie, to me, the problem in this country is not that we have especially not in New Hampshire, we don't have a lot of fraudulent voting. Nobody's ever claimed that we have a lot of fraudulent voting. Yeah, maybe there's an example or two, but it's a very rare thing. The problem is not enough people vote.
I think that's
Not
the real
enough
problem.
people vote.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
the
sure we all
scan.
agree on that.
That's the
Yeah.
scandal in this country. You know, we have a
Right.
municipal primary, and you think it's good, you
20%.
get 20% out.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah,
people turn out for the presidential primary because so
Right.
why are we making it harder to vote?
Right. And why are we why are we trying to restrict it?
Somebody has an ID to vote. Let me ask you that.
No, it's not too much to ask, but we have a mechanism in place where they sign that affidavit. I mean, what you have to believe that by getting them to the polls, they want to vote. They bring something with them that shows who they are, and there's a method to verify it. And I think we've been very good at that. Yeah. You know, and I've been voting in Manchester for a long time. I mean, I first moved to Manchester in 1962, and I've been voting ever since. I think we know each other. You know, we know each other at the polls. I think we have a very good relationship with those working at the polls. They're committed public servants. They don't want people who don't have the right to vote to vote, and they check on it. I think they do a very good job, an extremely
I do
good
too.
job.
I think the people who work the polls, they're not the ones making the policy. Do you believe in the affidavit system, or should it be scrapped? Do you believe in having somebody raise their hand and swearing and all that, saying an affidavit, or is that just ineffective?
No, I think it's very effective. It's very effective when
You do?
people. Yes, I do.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
And that's checked.
Well, the idea is somebody's supposed to be checking up on these people.
And they
Nobody
do.
does.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
Well,
they do.
Purposely left his ID behind,
Yeah.
just to go through the system. He signed the affidavit, all that. No one ever came knocking on his
Yeah.
door to verify anything. Nobody ever follows up on any of this
We've
stuff.
given
Well-
money to the Secretary of State
Yeah,
to.
they have an appropriation to do that.
We've made arrangements for some follow-up on that, but I think that there's, again, all I can say is that the problem of possibly somebody voting who shouldn't, a very rare occurrence, is overwhelmed by the problem of not enough people voting, so we should not tighten up voting requirements to discourage people. We got to take a break, Eddie. Thank you for
Eddie.
calling.
Thanks for
We've
the
got
call.
to take a break, and we'll be
Take
right
care.
back to talk
Happy
about
New Year.
the first day of the legislative session in both of our houses in the Great and General Court. We'll be right back. Hey, we're back on January 3rd, the first show of the new year, 1918, and we're going to welcome it with a snowstorm.
1918.
Did I say that?
Yes. We're in the 21st century. Come on, move
Hey,
ahead.
come
Move
on.
ahead. Move ahead. 28.
This is called the progress report. Come on.
Throw us off back.
2018.
I think about World War I memorials like
There
this.
you go.
How could I do that?
Right, 28,
How long will it take
2018.
to forget the date right when I write checks? It'll take a long time.
Oh, God.
2018, my goodness, folks,
Right.
this is
How time
really
flies.
bad.
Jeez.
So we're on with the first show of the new year. Let's leave the date out. It's the new year. And if you're just tuning in, we're very pleased to have here my good friend Lou D'Alessandro, who's the regular co-host on the first Wednesday of the month, and Steve Shortliff, our fine minority leader in the House of Representatives. And today, ta-da, was the opening day for our legislative sessions in both the House and the Senate. And a number of very important matters came up for votes. A number of things didn't get reached, and they were going to be put off because we're not going back tomorrow. We're going back on Tuesday because there's some rumor about a snowstorm. But we did have quite an opening day today. And in the House, it was the first day for our new Speaker, who was elected in November, to preside over the House. He's a former Speaker, now back as Speaker again, is Gene Chandler from Bartlett. And nobody has to be more concerned about working with the Speaker than our Minority Leader, Steve Shurtleff. And so he has the task of divining the differences between our prior Speaker, Sean Jasper, and his style, and the new Speaker. And I'd like to ask him about that and how things are going and what are your concerns. And certainly things seem to be moving expeditiously under Speaker Chandler.
There's been a lot of changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about some.
Well, Gene ran for Speaker with the idea that he'd be a caretaker, just filling out Speaker Jasper's term, and that he would not be seeking the position after the
I think
2018
he actually
election.
committed to that, didn't
He did. That was a promise he made on the floor. But he has made a lot of changes. Speaker Jasper always had a confrontation with the group, as you know, the House Republican Alliance, which is the furthest right of the Republican caucus that is more to the right than the Democrats, of course. After Gene was elected, he brought a lot of them into his administration as assistant majority leaders and floor leaders and different leadership titles. And he also set up a group, it's called his Policy Committee. And it's my understanding the purpose of this group is to vet bills before they actually go out to the committees to be worked on. And it's my understanding that it's this committee that will decide which votes the Republican caucus want to see passed and which votes they want to see killed. And they have a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being very low. That bill will be killed, and 5 is one they really want to see passed. And I've talked off the record to a couple of Republican chairs who are very concerned about this, and the idea that a bill will be determined by this group what fate it's going to have before the bill is even introduced. And
the committee's becoming somewhat superfluous on
well,
this.
exactly. It'll just be the rubber stamping. I hope this will change, and I hope this is what I've been hearing is not correct. I got a feeling that it is true, and that's something we're going to be watching very closely. And if so, we'll be talking more and more about that too publicly. The other thing, just a style change. Speaker Chandler was in yesterday at the office, and Tuesdays we always, myself and Cindy Rosenwald, the deputy leader, would sit down with the Speaker and the majority leader, and we'd go over the calendar and talk about who was speaking on what bills that we were going to oppose, what bills that we were okay with, just so that we'd have an idea what both sides was doing the following day. Yesterday I met with Sherm Packett and John Graham, and I like them both very much.
These are part of the leadership of the
Yeah,
Republicans.
Sherm is the deputy speaker, and John is a deputy majority leader, I believe. But and I actually talked to Speaker Jasper today about that, and he mentioned that was a little break in tradition. Now I don't know if Speaker Chandler was tied up, but little things, little nuances that are much different than working with Speaker Jasper.
Wow. Well, that sounds to me pretty alarming. I mean, the idea that this policy committee will decide what the majority position should be on bills before they even get to the committee where the public has a chance to
Yeah.
testify and provide information that might be informative.
And you've got a lot of people that were part of that HRA group that are on this committee will have quite a voice.
Yeah.
The chair of the committee is a member of the HRA, and
That's the House Republican Alliance.
yeah, and I just worry about what direction they're going to bring,
Yeah.
and what actions will it be taking.
Well, the thing that has most concerned me this term, Steve, and I see it in my own committee, Science, Technology, and Energy, all the time, is an increasing partisan divide, and that's bad enough. But it's accompanied by by what I perceive to be people operating on the basis of their ideology, regardless of the facts. That's the thing that I've seen to an extent I've never seen before.
Yeah.
We have in our committee, and I'm sure we're not alone, bills that have testimony that's overwhelmingly on one side of the issue.
Yeah.
And because it interferes with the ideology that they have about, the government should not be involved in this or that, for example.
Yeah.
They vote that way in spite of the overwhelming testimony.
Yeah.
And this raises that concern for me, even to a greater degree, that this is what they're going to be doing with this policy planning.
You know what concerns me, Bob, too, is that we've got 178 Republicans that have signed a pledge to Americans for Prosperity, a Virginia-based organization, that there's 5 different things that they will vote against, that they promise to vote against. They promise to get rid of Medicaid expansion. They promise they'll raise no taxes. I can't remember what the other 3 is. It's a litmus test. And how someone could run for either the Senate or the New Hampshire House and say the only promise is I'm going to make it to the people that elect me.
Yeah,
I'm not going to make it to some organization who may or may not give me a donation.
that's right.
And that scares me.
Oh, I think
Yeah,
so.
yeah, I think so.
Every reason to be
Yeah.
to be concerned.
Yeah.
Because as a result of that, you lose the impartiality and the fairness issue, which indeed, when you got 400 members in the House of Representatives, the one thing that you should have is really a great deal of narrative between and it seems to me if you've got these groups gathering, and I was in the House in '72 when the House was a pretty operative body.
Yeah.
Jim O'Neill was the Speaker. He was a Republican. Kim Matzakis, God rest his soul, was the Deputy Speaker and really the Majority Leader. And it was a cohesive operation. The D's and the R's really got along. I mean that, really got along.
I think this was true under Speaker Scammon, too.
I wasn't there with Scammon. When I came back, Donna Sitek was the Speaker, and things tightened up a little bit when Donna was the Speaker. But it seems to me, again, when you got 400 people there, a wide variety of opinions, an opportunity to have great discussion. But when you consolidate those groups and they take these oaths that they'll only do this, then how are you going to make it work? How are you going to make it function?
Yeah.
And the whole reason for this body was so that we would have great representation.
Right. Everybody would have a
Everybody
voice.
would have a voice, but that seems to have gone. That's gone the way of high button shoes, Bob. just to talk about 1980.
Well, we got to get back to it. I think we do.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope that we could convene. It used to be you talk to people in the cafeteria, and of course the old Highway Hotel. Everybody refers to the Highway Hotel, but it really wasn't a bad thing. People did have a chance to get together. We don't have that today. We don't have it in the Senate. When I first came to the Senate, we did have some camaraderie because many of us had just swung over from the House.
Sure.
And we had a relationship in the House. But as time has gone on, I think there's less of that even in the Senate with only 24.
Yeah.
But I think that's a problem. And if I might, Bob, I think the thing that we've forgotten is to talk to one another and to communicate. We won't communicate. Everybody's on those devices, and we don't talk. What do they say? You can tweet me.
Yeah. Text me.
Text me. Well, I don't text.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I don't text. And I like to talk to people. I want to shake your hand. I want to sit down with you. I want to talk to you. We're losing the ability to communicate.
I got to tell you, Lou, Thanksgiving, my son and I went out for dinner for Thanksgiving, and we went to the buffet, and I was walking back to my table, excuse me, and I saw 4 people at a table, and they all had their head bowed. And I said, isn't that nice, the saying grace? My mother would be so proud. And I walked up the table. They were all on their phones texting.
Texting.
Yeah. Just
Text me.
Oh.
Text me.
shows you my age, I guess.
Oh, God. Well, it shows you mine.
Yeah.
I have one of those flip phones. They
Yeah.
say I'm a dinosaur.
Yeah. But the other thing too, Lou, that troubles me, I think, is we forget about the people in the middle, the
Yeah.
undeclared voters in the
Right.
state. They're not left, they're not right. They're somewhere in that middle. They may be a little left on this, a little bit to
Right.
the right on that. And they don't really have time to get into the nitty gritty of politics. They're worried about the children's education, paying the mortgage, property taxes,
Sure.
health care. And that's the ones we got to look out for. When you polarize yourself so much that you're pledging to somebody over here on the left or to the right,
Yes.
you've
you've
done a
lost it.
disservice to that group in the middle.
And as I say, communication.
Just
Communication
talking.
will save this nation if we communicate.
Yeah.
We talk to one another. We now have a consent calendar in the Senate. That galls me. We are supposed to be a deliberative body. What we say on the floor is a matter of public record. If anybody wants to know what our position is, they can find out what we said on the floor of the Senate. They can refer to it. Now we have a consent calendar. I remember when they put the consent calendar in the House. When I first
Oh, yeah.
went to the House,
Yeah.
every bill was debated. I mean, real long sessions. and
Sure.
so forth. But the consent calendar, and sometimes the narrative that gives you supposedly the content of the bill has no correlation with
No.
what the bill says.
Yeah.
So people can get confused. I just think conversation is so important. Communication is so important, and I think it's one of the things that's destroying our families. To be honest with
Yeah.
you, we don't communicate.
No.
And I must say, when I went to my daughter's house for dinner, my wife and I did, and we all sat down at the table, and husband was at the head of the table, wife was at the other end,
Yeah.
kids were around the table, and we talked.
Wow.
I felt really, really, really terrific
Yeah.
about that. Just talking, and I think we used to do that when I was growing up.
Oh, sure.
The big thing was Sunday dinner, but
Yeah.
God, we forget to do that today.
Oh, I know.
And I think, again, we got this chief executive officer of the United States of America who's just tweeting to beat the band. I just can't understand it. I really can't.
Well, they always said Ronald Reagan was a Teflon president, but President Trump has got him beat.
By a
Oh, by a country mile.
shot. Oh, by a country mile is
Oh.
right.
Well, except that he only is interested in appealing to his base. He
Yeah.
makes no effort to reach out to the people that don't think he should be president, didn't vote for him, don't think he's qualified.
Yeah.
And that's a majority of the people. He makes no effort to do that. Even with this go-around with Steve Bannon today.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, boy.
I mean, he again said, it's not going to hurt me with my base.
Yeah.
This guy Bannon's shenanigans.
Well,
I mean, it's just awful.
as I say, communication. People walk around the streets today with their heads down.
Right. Yeah.
I find that to be awful.
Yeah.
If you can't get your head up and look at what's going on and just say hello to people.
Yeah.
Just say hello. My God, I really, this is. I've been in the business a long time, and I'll be in it for a little while longer. But geez, you want to leave it better than it was when I started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hope that we can. I hope that we can do that.
Bring that
Speaking
pendulum
of all
back.
that, Lou,
Right.
what happened in the Senate today that people might be interested in knowing about?
Well,
What were the big issues that you disposed of?
The big issue is the again the bill that defines a resident and a residency and so forth. That passed on a partisan vote, as many of them do pass on partisan votes, and that's what I was referring to with the caller.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is compress voting rather than
Yeah.
to expand it, and that was the big issue in
Yeah.
the Senate today. Then there were a series of other bills, and having to do with a few tax credits that we had passed in the last session, but now we're putting them into interim study.
Sure.
Interim study. You know that big pit called interim study? But that was the really big issue that we spent just a great deal of time on. And then the other one is the retired person and the number of hours a retired person can work, the number of, in
This is a
aggregate.
group 2?
Yeah, has group 1 and group 2.
Oh, yeah,
Both,
okay.
Both,
Oh, yeah.
both are in
Yeah.
there. And that's sent back to committee for more work. And I think Sharon Carson does a good job
Yeah.
that she's working on. But that's another key bill, because we can't find people. We can't find people to work in some of these positions. So that was a debatable issue. And then there was the last one that was quite contentious was the fire marshal and an incident that took place in Laconia where there was an arrest made and a problem ensued, and this was over a backwater valve person was doing plumbing work, and the fire marshal arrested him. So that became an issue. And you know how that can happen. Person
Sure,
gets to somebody,
sure.
but those were the main events. On the Senate floor, and we got through the calendar. Most guides the Senate very well, but the key issues were all partisan. All partisan.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
Hey guys, you can take a break, or Ryan is on line 1.
Oh, let's talk to Ryan and then take a break if we can do that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. He's on line 1, you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, green button.
Hi, Ryan, you there? Ryan, you're on the progress report. If you're there, we're happy to have you participate.
Yes. First, I'd like to wish you all a happy New Year. I appreciate what all three gentlemen do for the citizens of the state.
Thank you.
Thanks a
But
lot.
I'd like to know if there's a bill that every driver is required to have insurance in the state of New Hampshire, and if there isn't, why isn't there one?
Well, that's an excellent
good question.
It's an excellent question, and most states have what they call comprehensive, and that's the very basic policy. We for years have tried to get that passed, but because of the the live free or die state, people say if you don't want insurance, you don't have to get insurance, and that's been the mantra that's been carried around here. But I agree. Today, with the number of accidents that happen and the number of uninsured, you assume that if you're insured, you assume all of the responsibility. And just talking to the police in Manchester, we had 3,000 crashes in Manchester last year. 3,000.
Wow.
Going to be more this year.
Yeah, and I think
The weather.
many of them were uninsured. So that's an excellent question. And why can't it pass our legislature?
Yeah.
I don't have an answer to that.
I think last time I knew there was only one other state that had the system that we have. I can't remember which one it was, but we're very far out on this, not requiring it. And so what everybody should do, if you're in this New Hampshire, make sure you got big limits on your uninsured motorist protection.
Yes.
Because if you don't, somebody runs into you who's uninsured, you're going to have to look to your own insurance company to
Right.
protect you from the costs of that. But that is an excellent question, and I don't know why we do that, but I think Lou's right. It has to do with our live free or die motif, and that's
Yes.
why we don't require people to wear motorcycle helmets, and we don't require adults to have seat belts, and all of these things that would really do us a lot of good if we had these things, because it would cut down on costs.
Yep.
Sure.
Not to mention, injuries and deaths and all that sort of thing. It would also cut down on costs. So we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back with what will be the final segment of this progress report for the year 2018.
Very good.
Excellent.
And we'll come back and we'll talk about some of the major activity in the House today with Steve Shurtleff, and maybe look a little bit ahead to what might be coming up. So we're back. This is the final segment, the third segment, as it is pretty much every time we do this show, the progress report. And we'll be getting into some more subjects, and again, welcoming your calls. We appreciate the calls we've had. 640-3091 if you would like to participate. And just mention once again that I'm joined by my good friend as the first Wednesday of the month host, Lou D'Alessandro, Senator Lou D'Alessandro, the Dean of the Senate, who served in many capacities in New Hampshire, but he's now a state senator, has been for a good long time, and gets a lot done. And my good friend Steve Shurtleff, who has had a distinguished career in law enforcement, the military, Concord City Councilor, and now the minority leader, and we think maybe next year by this time he'll be the Speaker of the House. We'll see. We certainly hope that might be the case. And we're here with these legislative stars because today was the opening session for both the House and the Senate in Concord. Lots of contentious bills were before us. Some of them were not got to, will be gotten to Tuesday and times following, but we dealt with a lot of retained bills and some very big ones. Lou's talked about some on the Senate side, and I'd like to ask Steve to talk about some of the important bills on the House side. I think probably the biggest was SB 193.
Yeah, that was the one that drew the most attention, and I think will have the greatest impact on the state, especially our local property taxpayers. As you both know, that was a bill that sets up this voucher program. A private entity will run it. They'll get 5% off the top for managing this program that should be managed by the Department of Education. But it'll allow people to go to send their children to a private school or parochial school. It'll
Or homeschool.
Our homeschool will also receive funding out of this program. And then what it does, it'll take money away from our local school districts. There'll be a program for a while to try to make a stabilization to make them whole, but that won't last long. It never does in New Hampshire. We don't have the money to do it. I'm a product of the parochial school system, Bishop Brady in Concord, and I'm proud of my school and I'm proud of the education I got. But I don't feel the taxpayers should be subsidizing private parochial or homeschoolers. We have an outstanding school system in the state. I think U.S. News and World Report rated New Hampshire schools #1 in the nation from K to 12. And in the argument we heard today, this was good. This will give competition to the public school. We don't need to give public schools competition. They're doing a good job. We just need to support them and the teachers that are really doing an outstanding job educating our children.
Yeah. The vote was fairly close, but
24 vote difference.
24 vote difference. So, a 12 vote switch would have
Yeah.
changed the result. And I guess, Steve and Lou, the House was the last stop on this.
It'll be back again. It's going to the Finance
Oh,
Committee.
we'll be back
so
again.
we'll have another bite of the
crack
apple.
at it after that.
And I hope cooler heads will prevail and something different will come out
Oh,
of
well,
Finance.
that's good, because I thought maybe it would go straight to the governor for
No.
signature, and he said he would sign it
I
if
know.
it happens. Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's a good one. Did we have any things that you would say were successes today?
There was one bill that I was very proud of the House. It was a bill to survey women that get abortions across the state. And the state was going to spend $162,000 to do this survey. And the information would go to HHS and be kept there. And they've already had problems with data leaks before at HHS. And they said the women that were going to be surveyed, they'd be kept anonymous. But I understood at one time that if a woman happened to be a black woman in the National Guard, a sergeant, then they could immediately tell the North Country who that was.
Yeah, probably.
It was
Yeah,
about
I
a
think so.
25 vote difference that we're able to defeat it. The motion was ought to pass. We defeated that. The Republicans made a motion to table it so they could bring it back later. We defeated that. And then Andy White, the floor leader for us on the Democratic side, made the motion to ITL, and that passed by about 20 votes.
So that's definitive on that.
Absolutely, that's gone.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I remember the argument on that seemed to make a lot of it appeal to me a lot. A very compelling argument was, we don't require these statistics for any other medical procedure.
No.
And a lot of them are much more high-risk procedures
Yes.
than this procedure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, whatever your stand on abortion is, it's not a high-risk procedure for the patient.
No.
And so that was a good one. And then I thought the other thing that was somewhat heartening was the way the pesticide bill came out, right?
Yeah, that was another victory.
Yeah.
That was a bill that would allow spraying on school playgrounds and public playgrounds if there was a problem with ticks or something like that, that they had to be addressed. But some of the towns will just routinely spray with pesticides through the parks,
Yeah.
and this would stop that because they've shown there's a correlation between children picking up illnesses because of these pesticides, and so we passed that bill. It was a good bill, and the Democrats, especially on resources, need to be commended. No, that was Environment and Agriculture bill.
Yeah.
And they did a great job. And
So we have a number of bills that were put over to the next session, which was going to be tomorrow, but we're not going to
No.
be tomorrow. We're going to be
Yeah.
on Tuesday. Going forward, what are the big bills that you're most interested in
well,
either supporting or seeing?
bills coming out of your committee are tremendous. Reggie is one,
Yes, that's a
and
big
you can
one.
speak much more eloquently and to those than I can. But those are very important. What's happening on science and
Yeah,
tech?
we didn't get to any of them today because the chairman wasn't there. So
No, I know you.
they were postponed. It's called a special order. So
Yeah.
so that's what we did.
We have the legalization of marijuana coming
Yep.
up, and for some, I know that's a very important bill.
Yep.
I myself want to wait till the commission does the study. I know I'm somewhat, and our caucus may be in the minority, but
Well, I'm with you on it.
oh, okay, but
I have to be against my good friend Rennie Cushing.
I
on
know,
that
and
one.
I hate to do it, but we got to walk before we run, and let the commission do its work.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Well, very good. How do you think the rest of the session's going to go?
we've got a lot of bills. We got
Right,
1,000
too many.
bills, and that's an awful lot for the second half of a biennium.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we just got to keep a watchful eye. The biggest thing coming up is Medicaid expansion. In my
Right.
point of view,
Yes, it is.
it's so important, especially with the opioid crisis,
Yes.
especially here in the Queen City.
Right.
Yeah.
And
we've
that's
had
such an
no
effective tool, providing counseling for those that are on the street, but more importantly for those incarcerated, are getting counseling through Medicaid expansion in the Hillsborough County Jail and the state prison, which they never got before.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah, we have to deal with that this year because when we
Oh, yeah.
passed the expansion, it was to sunset after
sunset
This year.
next
December.
December,
December.
December 31st.
December, right?
So
Yeah.
we have to act
It's
on
got
that.
to be acted on.
Gotta
What do you
be
think,
active
Lou? Are
in-
we going to get it done?
Well, I hope so. I really, really hope so. But I'm very concerned about the House.
The
to be
House is
honest
the
with you.
big.
It's,
I know.
It's the big kahuna in this one.
Yeah.
And remember when that percentage that the state must come up with, when you stretch it out to the 90-10 situation,
Right.
that's a big number. That's almost
gotta-
$70 million.
Yeah, we got to find a way
We got to
to.
find a way to fund
We
it.
had a great way of addressing it, but of course that was
Yeah.
ruled by the.
Constitution, right.
Yeah, we wouldn't do that.
No.
We're having the hospitals and the insurance
Insurance,
voluntarily.
Right.
But there's got to be a method because it's
Oh, yeah.
paying dividends.
Oh, big time. And the other situation is, as part of that, they're moving everybody over, or trying to move people over to managed care.
Yeah.
So that's another situation.
That's something we got to watch, especially
We'll
on
watch it,
county
yeah.
nursing homes.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
A very big deal. The MET tax, how we handle that? Is there enough money in the budget for the state to pay
Yeah.
the hospitals? And the hospitals are concerned. I'm sure they're concerned about that. And that comes due. There's a payment that's due in March, and there's another payment that's due. So the uncompensated care payment.
Right.
So these things are going to happen. And I think the hospitals themselves, we have those North Country hospitals that we should be concerned about.
They're on
You
the
know,
margin.
They're on the margin.
Yeah.
They're on the margin,
Yeah.
and yet
What do they
people
call them?
need to
Acute
serve-
care? Or, you know?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And we worry about
Yeah.
about them.
Yeah.
And there are people there that have to be served, and Hitchcock can't serve everybody.
No.
Yeah.
But indeed, that's a problem. And what about the type of care you get with specialization, such an important part of the practice of
Yeah.
medicine right now? Those are all concerns that
Yeah.
we have to deal with.
Well, we're right up against the end of the hour, folks. It goes by fast every time.
Sure does.
Steve, it's been wonderful to have you here. How are you feeling about the prospects for the next election coming up? We've had a pretty damn good run of the special elections.
We
haven't
really have. I
We've elected
understand.
some outstanding people, and Wolfboro, the first Democrat since 1913.
1913.
And,
Yeah.
the lady down in
Carrie Lerner down in
Sandown,
Rockingham
Chester.
4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are outstanding results. They may not have the national news like Doug Jones in Alabama, but they're very, very encouraging.
Well, I understand Professor Smith from UNH and Kevin Landrigan's column predicted that Democrats would take the House and the Senate.
Yeah.
But we don't want to do it because it's an anti-Trump vote. We want to do it because we've earned the trust of the
Right.
people in New Hampshire, and we
Yeah.
want to serve them.
Well, I want to thank you for your leadership for the Democrats in the House. I'm
Well, thank you, Bob.
proud to be part of your team.
Well, we're glad to
And
have you there.
I'm certainly glad Lou's hanging in there and
Got to.
doing good work in the Senate and in many other aspects of life as well. Folks, it's been great to be with these folks, and I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll be back next week with another edition of the Progress Report with Mike Farley. He'll be back from being a Hibernian.
Happy New Year, everybody, and enjoy every moment of every day.
And congratulations, Joyce, for a great inauguration and a
Yes.
great start for being mayor of Manchester.
Very, very best
Absolutely.
wishes to our new mayor.
Yeah. Bye.